get it on Facebook later. Um, for those of you on Zoom, I hope you know what this is. This is Pro Power Hour, something we do every Thursday, right at this time, this new time slot. Product training webinar that we do. We started this last year. If you're new to Power Hour, we have a library of all of our past recordings and sessions. You can go back and watch pretty much about almost every product or feature that we have available in Housecall Pro. I think we're still missing a few, but we're working on that. And we're working on some new topics too. We're gonna be talking a little bit about the Max plan in a week or so, and just some of the advantages you get on that, as well as our Super Pro program. So if you're not on a Max plan or you're not a Super Pro, I encourage you to be here next week. Um, and yeah, so all of our recordings are available. We'll drop the help link that has all of those on YouTube. We're always looking for your suggestions too. So if there's something we haven't done yet that you want us to cover in a future session, let us know. But graciously have Phil here every week to take you guys through the slide deck and give you a demo and answer your questions. So Phil, I'll turn it over to you and we can get started.
All right. Hello, everybody, again. Welcome to Power Hour. And today we're going to be focusing mainly on multi-day appointments and multi-options in regards to estimates. We're going to talk a little bit about segments, and we're going to also talk about appointments, reoccurring jobs, kind of sprinkle in a little bit of everything that involves more than one day, more than one visit, almost anything that requires more than one. So, as usual, I'm going to go ahead and do a little slide deck for you, hit you all with some information. As Chris mentioned, these slide decks are available with there's some links on there to some help articles. So if you need further information regarding some of the things that we talk about today, you can always go to those links, or you can find them in the Help Center, as he mentioned before. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So as we mentioned, we're focusing on multi-day appointments and multi-option approvals, and things like that. So the first couple of slides here. First one we're going to talk about is setting up the multi-day appointments. Now, you're going to hear me talk back and forth about appointments and segments. Segments is how we used to do appointments before the appointment feature. So really, segments was a way for us to say we're going to be at a job site for multiple days and keep everything under technically the same invoice number. But now we've kind of improved that to do appointments, which in my opinion works a lot better. As I was reviewing through some of the questions that were prepared for today, it seems a lot of you seem to prefer segments, and we can certainly have this discussion. But I'm going to go ahead and just again touch on everything. So with multi-day appointments, it's really easy if you want to use them or not. Everybody has the option to use them or not. So if you do want to use them, these are the instructions right in here. And again, I will show this when I pull up my account. But really, you just go straight to your account settings and you can go to job details and you'll see the option for appointments. All you really have to do is turn that switch on or off if you want to use it or not. But that's really all there is on this particular page, but we'll keep moving. Um, so using the multi-day appointments, now with segments, it used to get very cluttered because of the way that each segment creates. I'm just going to use the example of invoice 100. If we create a segment, that's going to create invoice 100-1 and 100-2. So one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I got early on was is that it gets quite chaotic and it's really hard to keep track of all these different segments and especially how it relates when all those segments move over to QuickBooks. So that is why we created the appointments feature. So that way it was easy enough that when it is turned on, instead of seeing the schedule button on your jobs, you're going to see make an appointment. So that way you can just continue to add more appointments for one particular job. Another thing that the appointments did help is that we had feedback in the beginning, and I still get feedback to this day about it, is when we set up jobs that are going to take longer than one day. If you do that kind of the old school way, you probably recall or still see that when you do that on your calendar, it doesn't block out the time frame, it blocks out a bar at the top of the schedule, and it blocks out essentially those days. So with appointments, it made it easier for us to say, okay, if this job is going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we can actually see the time blocks on on the scheduler. So it's easier for our dispatching people. Um, But yeah, really on here, it's just kind of reiterating what I was saying is that being able to use that add appointment button to go ahead and create additional appointments for each particular job. Each appointment does have its own on my way notification so that each day when we do go out for our new appointment, we would just simply hit on my way and that will tell the system as well as send a notification to the customer as if we were doing a job that only took us one day. So really just some information here and just kind of displaying that it's going to show that and how it's going to look on the mobile app for your technicians. Now, a couple of things to point out when it comes to appointments. So one of the things is that appointments will show as one card within the pipeline. And once you click on that card, you will then see all of the appointments separated. So again, on the pipeline, still think of it as your one job, but within that one job, you can see all of the appointments that have been either scheduled or completed on that, what I call tickets. Also, when you hit finished on a job, I get this all the time, is when you hit finish, if say you have multi-days and one of your technicians says that they are finished on the first day, that is going to tell the system that the job is completely finished. So I have always trained all of my pros is that when you have multi-day appointments and you are using them correctly, what you will want to do is when you are done with work for the day, you will want to hit the pause button and it will prompt them to leave a note. So they should leave a note something along the lines of like, finished work day one, pause. And then when they get back to the job, they can just unpause it and keep going. So thing to point out here with that being said is that with appointments, it's a little bit harder for people that are really focus a lot of attention when it comes to time tracking because with our system, and this was kind of one of the questions that was brought up through Facebook that we had prepared for today, is that our system currently, as we do our time tracking, it doesn't take into account each appointment. I kind of say that a little bit like it kind of does, it kind of doesn't. It doesn't do it very well, I'm gonna say. But if you caught one of our previous sessions where we were talking about where to see the notes and the time tracking in the office side, you can see when they clocked in and clocked out on each appointment when you look at their field tech status. However, when we look at the field tech status box by itself on each job, and when we pull our reports, it's really pulling the entire total time on the job. So I hope that makes sense. I will point this out in the demo, but again, just kind of reiterating that you're always going to see the total time, total travel time, total time on the job. If you do open that up, you can get to see a breakdown, but the system is always going to default to the total time. This is feedback that has been sent to product managers and developers, so there may be some improvements coming down the pipeline. Now talking about segments. With segments, there are still a couple of uses, which is why we haven't gotten rid of it. One of them is some people prefer to use them for their multiple visits and multi-day jobs. If you like to do it that way, don't let me convince you to do it any other way. What I always tell everybody is always do what works best for your business. So segments is still used again as multi-day appointments. People also use segments when it comes to having to schedule a return visit. Because typically when we finish a job, we like to close out that invoice and just kind of, have that be in the past. So you really have the option of either creating a whole new invoice, or if you want, you can go back to that old job and go ahead and create a segment to kind of keep those two together. Again, if you like to do that, don't let me convince you otherwise. Um, and the third option is collecting a deductible and billing insurance. So for that, you have one segment to collect your deductible payment, your second segment to bill insurance and minus the deductible, and then you can update the invoice to reflect the correct balance. Another one that I've typically seen segments be used that is actually not on this slide is for change in work orders. We have created other feature to also kind of tackle that issue, which is our estimates on jobs or estimates on site. And I believe we did touch on this before, and I think we did at least dedicate a couple minutes in a session to estimates on jobs. But if not, we can certainly talk about it at length at a different time. But with segments, that was kind of the idea is we're going out there to do a specific work order, and we start to see something else that we can do around the job site. So without having to create a whole new invoice, we would just go ahead and create a segment so that that way, again, keeping that idea of invoice or work order number 100-1 is our original work order, and 100-2 is the change in work order, the new and improved one that the customer wants us to do. Next thing is the multi-option for estimate approvals. For this, you do need to turn it on, and you'll also notice on each of your estimates, there is the option at the top on the web where it says, do you want this estimate to have the customer approve only one option or approve multiple options? So really turning it on in your settings if you want to make it a default, or you can do it on a job-by-job basis. Again, this is only on the web portal. But we do have this capability. So if you are a pro that likes to give your customer good, better, bests, or multiple different options when it comes to a particular project, you can certainly have the customer approve multiple options, or you can have them approve just one. So another thing on here is how to change the approval settings for the individual estimates. I think this is pretty much what I was just talking about a little bit, because I think, yeah, it looks like the slide before was how to do it for the defaults on the setting side. As we do them on a job-by-job basis, you can do that as well. So I did already explain this, and again, I'll show you how this all works when we get into my account. So a couple of frequently asked questions that have come through when it's in regards to some of the things that I just shared with you all is, can I approve options for my estimates regardless of the approval settings? Yes, you can. Pro approve options for your estimates no matter what approval settings are in place. Can I change the approval settings for an estimate anytime I want? You cannot change the approval settings for an estimate if it's set to multi-options and two or more options have already been approved by the customer or pro approved in Housecall. In such cases, the option to change the settings is disabled and relevant information is displayed when hovered over. We'll be able to see some of this as I demo it as well. Can I use the multi-option approval feature on my phone? Yes, you can. The mobile app version is in the works. So I'm sorry, I know that some of it is, some of the capabilities are, but I believe that it is being improved. So that's probably why that I immediately have answered yes, because I have seen this. But it looks like it's slowly rolling out to you all. But keep in mind that the approval settings that you choose from the web will apply to estimates created or sent from mobile apps. For example, if you set it to customer can approve multiple options, creating a multi-option estimate on a mobile app will allow your customer to approve more than one option. And do these work with the Sales Proposal Tool 2.0? So if you use Sales Proposal Tool 2.0, you can use the same settings to control how approvals work for your estimates and proposals. But remember, these settings won't affect proposals made with the old version of the tool. So a couple of good call outs there. And with that, let's dive into how this is all going to look. So just going to slide this over here and just kind of make sure I hit all the spots that we talked about. So with multi-day appointments, as I said before, to set up the defaults, it's going to be, or to set up the appointments, it is in your account settings. It is going to be under jobs and appointments. So right there, really, it's the only thing in this screen. It's the one switch to turn appointments on or turn them off. It's up to you whether you want to use them or not. I like to keep them on just because I find them useful as opposed to doing segments like I mentioned earlier. um, and to go ahead and use those appointments, if you haven't used them before, if we're going to go ahead and create a job, Go ahead and create it. All right, so here's our job. And as we can see up here, instead of saying schedule, it says add appointment. So when I go ahead and click on it, just like scheduling any other call, I can go ahead and schedule it to whoever needs to be scheduled. And we can see right there that the first appointment has been made. And we can either from this appointment button here or this appointment button here, we can continue to add more appointments if we need. So one of the questions that was pre-prepared was can there be multiple options on one day? Yes, there can be. So as you can see, I can have multiple people be booked for the same job to show up at different times using the appointments. All right, and then within the appointments window here, you do have the ability to, one, you can edit that appointment. So if you need to for any particular reason, rescheduling it, or maybe technician called in sick, whatever that is, you can certainly make changes by simply editing the appointment and not the whole job. And we also give you the ability to send that on my way from the office. So if the technician is having issues being able to do that for their appointment, we can always do that on the back end. Or if we're going to go ahead and cancel an appointment entirely, we can always delete it. So that's pretty much the functionality of the multi-day appointments. So then the next thing is let's talk about segments. So with segments, that is going to be up here where this gear and wrench icon is. And you'll see you have add segment and copy to new segment. So if you want to take everything that is on your current work order and copy it over to another segment, maybe you want to add a couple of line items. So like I mentioned, changing work order or adding things to a work order, we can always copy everything from our original work order to the next segment. Or we can just create a whole new segment by itself. So as you can see, now when we're looking at my screen, it's saying that this is invoice number 24096-1, 2400096-2. And that's just how the system does it, so that we know that these are technically the same invoice number, but they are two segments of that invoice. Really, that's all there is to the segments. But I am sure a lot of you are asking, have the question, what is that going to look like when I look at an invoice? So if we're going to go ahead and do that, I'm just going to add a couple of services here so we can see what it would look like. Okay, there's one. And for two. Okay, so when we go to invoice this, you'll see is that it's going to ask if we are doing just the one segment or if we're doing both. So here we have the first one. Wait, this might have changed actually. Okay. Ah, I see it. Now it makes sense. Sorry, y'all. So each segment is its own invoice, and that makes sense because one of the questions as I was researching for today was how it transfers over to QuickBooks. And one of the questions that seems to be repeated a lot is because of when segments create, each segment creates its own invoice number within QuickBooks. Back, it seems like before, I remember that back in the day, you used to be able to send off both segments together. Looks like that has been fixed to avoid the hiccups that happen with QuickBooks because, again, as I mentioned, and that's one of the questions that was asked, is when segments are sent over to QuickBooks, they are their own invoices. All right, next. talking about the estimates and the multi-options there. So to turn those on, at least in the defaults, just going to show again, is when we go to our account settings and we go to estimates. There is estimate defaults, and we have down here, customer can approve, and we have the option of whether we want to allow them to approve multiple options or only approve one. Again, this is just setting up the default. So my default, I'm going to keep it as multiple options. Now, if we go ahead and create an estimate, got a line item. All right, so here's my first line item. And at the top up here, this is where you can go ahead and start to add options. So again, if you do any good, better, bests, or like to give your customer multiple different options. And also right here is where that you can, on this particular estimate, go ahead and mark that it's going to either be allowed for multiple options to be approved, or if only one option is going to be approved. So if I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to copy to a new option just for sake of time, make things a little easier. All right, so now I have my copy of option one and I have option one over here as well. Notice similar to those segments that they are dashed so that way we can keep track of which one is which. And when we go to send it off, we'll see down here is estimate options, and I had mine set for multiple options. So when we are looking at the estimate, we can see there is option one, and then there is copy of option one. Um, so you can rename that. So if you wanted to name that as option two, or I've talked to some people where they say their first option is going to be like the garage floors, and then the next option is going to be the kitchen floors, things like that. And that's pretty much the things that we covered in our slide deck. Chris, did I miss anything? I don't think so.
No, I think yeah, those were the three avenues we were looking for today.
All right, sounds good. So then, yeah, I'll let the chat questions to start rolling in, and I'll go ahead and answer some of these that were provided beforehand. So I have first one from Monica. Is there a way to change a job from recurring to one where we can add appointments? Sounds like it had a little bit of an issue here. It says a multi-day job and we need to add several appointments, but won't let us. So as I was reviewing this earlier, my suggestion just from reading this is you're most likely going to have to delete all those recurring jobs and then create a new job and then start adding those appointments. Um, if I am a little worried about your last sentence here saying that it's not letting you do this. So for that, I would probably reach out to set up a support call so myself or one of my teammates can take a further look at what your issue is and guide you in the right direction. Next question from Aaron. New house call user struggling with the appointment feature. I have a job that is going to be scheduled on multiple days. I booked the main job, added the appointments. We started the job yesterday, but it won't allow me or the tech to close out his worked hours from yesterday. Um, what is the point? Why can't we track time of technician's day to day? So as I mentioned, that for a job, and if I'm going to I'll pull up a job here. And I don't have the best of example here, but I'm going to do my best. So for each appointment, it doesn't it doesn't mark like what their travel time was for that day. It doesn't mark how much time they spent on the job site that day. All of that is down here in the field tech status. And as I mentioned, and we called out in the slide, is that it basically calculates your total time on the job and your total travel time spent. So that's all of it bundled into one. However, the reason I was kind of like yes and no is because technically you can click into this field tech status. And when field techs hit On my way, start, pause, and stop, and they're leaving notes for all of those reasons. They all populate here and they're all time stamped. So technically, you could figure out how much time was spent on each day. It's just that the system doesn't do it automatically at this time. Again, this feedback has been provided to the people that need to know about it, and hopefully that there are some improvements to this coming down the line. Next question is from Michael. Is there any way to close out an appointment on a job, or will all appointments just show as open on the calendar until the whole job is closed? I don't want to delete the appointment, just clean up the calendar a bit. Um, I mean, technically, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it. So yes, they will they do show up on the calendar as open until the whole job is closed. Um, I don't necessarily know what the reason of that is, but it would make sense to me to let us know that the job is still technically not finished. But that is some good feedback that I think we can bring to our product managers to maybe take a look at and maybe make some improvements on that. Next one is from Melissa. Is there a way to keep additional segments from becoming invoices? I like the idea of adding segments to larger jobs that require multiple visits, better than appointments. Keep the pipeline organized, but I don't want to create multiple invoices when pushed to QuickBooks. Okay, so as I was thinking about this, and I kind of mentioned this just a moment ago, is technically each segment is part of one invoice. It's like, as I mentioned, the 100-1, 100-2. However, as I put in my notes to answering this question, this can get very nuanced, really depending on how you're using segments and how you're issuing your invoices. But when it comes to QuickBooks, those, as I mentioned, each segment goes over as its own invoice. So it may unfortunately be easier for you to go ahead and do appointments because then everything stays on one invoice within Housecall, everything stays on one invoice within QuickBooks. Um, and there was one other thing I wanted to point out about that too. Actually, no, I think that's it. All right. Next question from Michael. I don't use segments, but want to. Does it screw up books in QuickBooks? Um, Screwing up the QuickBooks is quite a broad statement. From my understanding, again, is that each segment has its own invoice, and so if you prefer that, don't let me stop you. But for me, I personally like the appointments because I like to keep everything on one invoice. That also has one invoice in QuickBooks. And then when it comes to, oh yeah, it was the progress invoicing. So if you do have those big ticket projects and you want to be charging them progressively instead of doing segments where you're giving them um, essentially a new invoice, that's where your numbers can start to get a little funky. And that's why we came out with progress invoicing. So you didn't have to use segments for progress billing anymore. Because now you can just do progress billing on one invoice/one job, same way that you do it with the appointments. Next question. Can you schedule multi-day appointments? Are they meant to be scheduled per visit, like one appointment per visit per day? Um, yes, you can. You can schedule as many appointments as you need for any project. As I showed, you can have multiple on one day, and you can have multiple appointments across multiple days. Another question. I have a large job that my company is able to draw from as needed, trying to figure out the best way to make one invoice for the total amount, but be able to deduct the payout we received last Friday. That is basically what I'm talking about when it comes to progress billing. So for that, let's go with this example here. We have this job. I'm going to go ahead and match your, what is that, $72,000? Okay. All right, and when we want to go ahead to invoice, uh, actually, let me start up a new one. Let me make sure I have progress on. Okay, do have it on. All right, so let me just start up a new one. All right, and when we hit invoice and we go to details, there we go. So that's what I just wanted to double check. I think it was because that last job was a recurring job, so that's why I created a new one here. Here's your $72,000 project here, and you said you got 10 grand from it, so we can go up to invoice. And if we want to have the customer pay that 10,000, we can change the invoice number to 10,000 and have them pay that while still having a remaining subtotal. Or as you were saying here, is that if you're just simply telling the system that you collected the 10,000 already, you can certainly go up to the pay button here and go ahead. I'm just going to say, you probably received it as a check, so maybe $10,000. And there we go. We can see our invoice number here with that $10,000 payment. So you might want to do progress billing. That's the best thing that I can suggest for you. Next question is from Melissa. Is there any way to keep additional segments from becoming invoices? I like the idea of segments. Oh, this is one we already answered. I didn't realize that it's like the same one twice. All right, next is Danzig. Is it possible to separate jobs into segments, but then send one final invoice for the entire job rather than sending an invoice for each job segment? Um, my response to this is technically yes. If you go ahead and create your job segments and you have, 3 items on the first segment, and then you have maybe 4 on the next segment, and if they're all different and they have two different subtotals, what you could always do is create a third option and add all of those line items to the third option and just simply bill for the third one. Or if you don't even want to create a third segment, you can just create a whole new invoice and go ahead and add all those line items onto one invoice so that that way only one goes to your QuickBooks, customer only receives one invoice. My suggestion for cleanup after that would be once you put it all on one invoice, you may want to either cancel or delete the segments so that it doesn't ruin your books, that you have essentially double entry for the amount that's owed, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, please mention that in the chat. I can explain it a little bit further. Um, Here's another one from Michael. Can someone explain segments? Does the balance carry over from the original job? I never did segments before, but I noticed that when we reschedule an ongoing job, the old disappeared, making it difficult to see what specific day. And do photos carry over, and do segments affect billing? So a couple of questions in there. Again, I did kind of do a little bit of an explanation of what segments are for. Does the balance carry over? So, as I mentioned, and really a segment is going to have its own subtotal. It doesn't take away from what the original balance is. I have worked with some pros that like doing something that like creating one essentially like one invoice or one work order for the whole project and then dividing it up into segments. That is a manual process, but yes, you can do it. Um, and your point about when you reschedule an ongoing job, especially if you're using a segment, if you reschedule it, that is going to, because it's not an appointment, it's going to take it off the calendar like you noticed and put it in the new slot that you rescheduled it to. So if you do like to have the data of the old appointment versus the new one, I would suggest, Michael, that you scoot over to appointments. And do photos carry over? And do photos carry over if you mean from segment to segment? You saw that you do have the ability to copy one segment to another segment, which would include those photos. But if you do a brand new segment, it will not carry over from the original segment, just simply because that's not what we're telling the system to do. And the last one part of your questions was how does it affect billing? Again, each segment is its own invoice. Next question is from Brian. Is there a way to copy to a job for the same customer that approved 10 estimates into one job? Um, yeah, pretty much the answer is yes. So if you do have 10, 10 options, and you have it set where that they can approve multiple options, yes, they can do that. And then all of it will fall into one work order. Is it possible to have HCP create jobs with a -1 segment even if the job doesn't have a segment built yet? This would reduce confusion when a segment is actually created. Perhaps there could be a toggle. Um, there could be a toggle in the settings to automatically assign -1 to all newly created jobs for users who rely heavily on segments. That's some good feedback. We can take that up to our product managers and developers, have them take a look at it and match that against any other feedback that they've gotten. But as far as I know, really it's only when you create segments and when you create multiple options for an estimate that you get that -1. So I've worked with a lot of pros before that like to include dashes as well as letters in their invoice and work orders and work order numbers. At this time, we are still just kind of numbers based, and the only dashes are for estimate options and segments. And so that is everything that was prepared. Let's go ahead and take a look. Anybody? I don't see any chats here or any questions in the Zoom chat. Chris, any in the Facebook?
Yeah, we got the Facebook running a little while earlier, actually right when you're starting the demo, so it was good timing. Do have a couple of questions here. I've got one from Eric. It's a great question. How do notifications differ between appointments and segments?
There really, there really is no difference, because you could be. There really is no difference because when you schedule a segment, it's going to be just like scheduling a job. So customer is going to get that job's been scheduled text. When the technicians hits on my way, they're going to receive that text. And when they say it's finished, they're going to receive that text, regardless of whether that's an appointment or a segment.
Good deal. And then it looks like our other question, Lauren, I see you in here. Looks like you are helping Amy out here. Perfect. Little related but unrelated about sending an invoice via text. Cool. Okay, okay. And Eric, I see your feedback here. Thank you. We'll definitely pass this along. All right, all right. Well, I'll give final few seconds here if there's any remaining questions. Gonna, of course, promote office hours. It's gonna be happening tomorrow. It's 11 Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like the link to join us for office hours, just give us a comment on Facebook or here in the chat. I'll be there. Jessica Peterson will probably be joining me. Maybe Shayna. We'll be hanging out. So you have any feedback for us, you want to connect with some other pros, Amber DeLong's been there every week. Chris Olson's been there every week, so shout out to them. Um, yeah, looks like we're out of questions, so we'll see you. Can this Zoom? Yes, yes, you'll get a recording. Our recordings usually go up on Fridays, so look out Friday afternoon for the recording. It's also on Facebook now, so if you're in our Facebook group, as soon as we end this thing, the recording is automatically available in the group, and you can watch it. But it'll be in our help center and YouTube tomorrow. Yep, no problem. All right. Well, we'll see everyone back next week. I think we're going to be talking about the Max plan, like I mentioned at the beginning, and our Super Pro program. So hope you'll all join us and hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks, Phil.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
Peace.